Grant, thank you for joining us and doing the communications and information technology presentation for us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. Okay, so you currently work at American Realty Advisors for this as the Senior VP of Information Technology. How is that, would you say? Do you enjoy it?
Enjoy it. Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of good work. We got some great projects and things we're doing, and it's a good company to work with. Definitely out there trying to help pension funds and other investment opportunities in real estate bring security to our customers.
Nice. All right. So looking at what you've accomplished, I mean, a bachelor's in mathematics, economics, and philosophy. You can imagine that was fun getting.
It was.
UCLA, not an easy school to get into by any means whatsoever. How is UCLA, by the way? Is it that hard to work there and to be a part of that community?
Well, my experience there was a little bit different. I was a fully employed MBA, which meant, much like a lot of you, I worked full time and went to school at the same time. So it's a different experience doing that. I always tell people if I had it to do over again, I probably would have quit my job and, spent full time on the MBA because you're trying to balance your life. I was married at the time, and your school and your work, and it's a lot to juggle. So you feel like you're really just doing as much as you can to get by than really fully experience everything and grasping all the knowledge that you're trying to learn. But all in all, it was worth it. Met some great people, and those are some of my better friends in Los Angeles today, still from that experience.
Yeah. Now, do you work with some of the people you went to class with, or do you were you able to make connections through that?
Yeah. I help them a little bit more. They usually it's people trying to start a business, and they'll have technology questions. What do we need here? What do we need there? And so I might do some side work consulting with them. But in my current job and role, I do not work with anybody from UCLA. Most of them went on to other type of roles and fields, like in finance or business operations, or they're entrepreneurs. They started companies versus, I'm kind of one of the lone people that was actually in technology and got an MBA.
All right.
I actually went to get my MBA to see if there was something other than I wanted to do besides IT and technology. And lo and behold, I decided to stick with technology just because a lot of the other things, they're the same day in and day out, right? They're, a transaction is a transaction. Buying a building, which is what we do, it's the same year over year, but technology always changes. There's always something new and exciting around the corner or that's being developed that you have to get a grasp on and understand. So instead of moving away from technology with the MBA, I doubled down, went back into technology with the MBA, and it helped me advance my career and kind of understand the business a little bit better.
All right, good to know. Right. So as we've already stated, you are the Senior VP of Information Technology. Is that is it a big role to fill? Are you always busy and just always moving?
It can be cyclical. It's going to depend on your company that you're working with and the size and strength of your team. I have a pretty strong team at American Realty Advisors, so there's definitely days that I feel like I'm doing nothing and they're doing everything, and I'm just checking in and bothering them when I'm not necessarily needed. But there's other days when I have to work with the business and report to the business and develop the strategy that I'm busy from the time my eyes open until they close at night, and having to think about everything that's required and what the business is concerned about and how much things cost and what the business will accept as a cost. So it fluctuates. So there's annual things that get you busy. There's seasonal things that quarterly things that keep you busy. And then there's always day-to-day things going on, but their network going down is a possibility. It doesn't happen every day. Hopefully it doesn't ever happen, but that brings its own, scrambling and excitement to keep you up at night. But you can never plan for those. So, or you should never plan to have them. Or
Now, you're currently on your 8th year there. I mean, that's a long time to be at a company. Would you say that you were like, through your process, you were prepared for all the things that you have to do today?
through my process, can you elaborate what you mean there?
Yeah, like growing through the company, like moving up in the ranks. Would you say that that definitely helped prepare you for where you're at?
Yeah, I mean, most of my experience prior to American Realty Advisors prepared me for this. So I was a consultant initially when I got out of school at Accenture for 7 years. So that kind of really taught me from coding to design to understanding systems and how data flows in and out of databases and across the network. And then my various roles at the other companies, I grew into the senior VP or CIO type role. So since I've been at American Realty Advisors, I've had that same role. And 8 years at a company is is actually quite a long time, especially this day and age. But as long as the projects are flowing and there's really good things for me and the team to sink our teeth into, I think it keeps it lively.
Definitely. So it says here that you collaborate a lot with like associates and executives on increasing the productivity and decision making. Are there ever any moments when you have to get a plan ready and you have to tell them something that they might not necessarily like to hear or want to hear?
All the time. This organization is run by a single individual. He's the owner and CEO, and he doesn't like to spend money. So every project is something he doesn't want to have to hear. And he doesn't use a lot of the technology that the business uses. He doesn't see a lot of personal value from it. He doesn't get the personal benefit or excitement from using it because he's a little bit more old school. He picks up a phone, he talks to people, sends an email. That's all he needs. Yeah. He has associates and other people that, if he wants to find out the answer to something, he tells them to go figure it out. He doesn't see what happens to them when they leave his office and what they have to go through to figure out the answer to his question. So, I mean, that's a lot of stuff that I have to understand what they're going through and explain to him. And the other executives, it's not just him, but the other executives who may not necessarily do the tasks or perform the work that is being asked of all the associates and people in the organization. So it's kind of building that business case for them to understand the issues that their own people are having.
Wow. Yeah, so that means when you go in with a plan, you have to come in not only with like the process and what they need to know, but you also need to come up with like backup information to say, hey, this is really something we need, and this is why we need it.
Exactly. So it's really easy to say this system costs $100,000 and it'll take us 6 months to develop it, and it'll be about $50,000 of our worker time to create. The trick is working with the business and understanding their issues and how that system can improve their lives, right? So you have to bring the value side of it. They call it a cost benefit analysis. So the cost is things tangible that we can see and kind of know as information technology people what things cost and how long it would take to develop through experience. But it's that value side that really is going to sell it to the business, and working with the individual users to say, hey, if you had this system and you had one place to go get all your information, how much time would that save you versus what you're doing today, right? And there's a real dollar value to that, of that improved productivity. and you have to build that into your business case. And there's a lot of intangible benefits that come along with it, right? Things that you can't really put a dollar value on, like making better decisions. How do you know you're making better decisions? What dollar value can you create from it? Well, you have to infer a lot of those things, that if you are improving the accuracy of your data and you're getting the data a lot more quickly than you had in the past, that you're prepared to make better decisions.
Okay, so you, like I said, you've been there for quite some time, and not only does technology change like nobody's business, but companies and people change as well. Now, it says the philosophy is that you become a part of a team that has a vision for the future driven by strong values and purpose. Through your 8 years there, would you say that the philosophy has changed or transformed over that time?
No, not really. I mean, philosophies, visions, culture, all that's pretty well ingrained. If you're starting a company or you're a little bit newer company, that stuff evolves more, I think, and it develops as the leaders of the organization kind of understand the direction they want to take the company. But at American Realty Advisors, I came in 2013, so it had what's that, 25, 35 some years of growth and stability before I came along. So I'd say, at least in my tenure, it's been pretty static. That the real focus is on our customers, which are institutional investors, and making sure we do right by them, and secure their money, make informed and best scenario acquisitions of buildings, and selling them at the appropriate time, and improving the value of those buildings over the time that we hold them. It's really, that's at the core of what we do, and everything else there. The core values, they're pretty standard, but they're culture based. I mean, transparency is a good one, right? And I think it's a good one actually for information technology and communication. That a lot of the bad rap that IT teams get at organizations is because the business doesn't really understand what they do. And as much as we can explain and make that clear and say, hey, we're not doing something behind a wall in secret. It's open. This is what we do, and we can explain it to you if you want to know, so that you understand what your money's going towards. But that goes for all departments. They need to be transparent on what they're working on, so that we can work better together. We're a lot stronger if we're communicating across the silos of our roles and departments.
Mm-hmm. Now, would you say that any of the core values listed here are easier or harder to follow or teach as you are a senior leader?
That's an interesting question. From an IT perspective, collaboration, I think, is a little bit, well, I think both transparency and collaboration are difficult topics for some people to grasp. And I see those kind of going hand in hand. The more transparent you are, the easier it is to collaborate, and the more people want to collaborate with you. But traditionally, again, IT kind of has this misnomer of just being at their desk and doing magic and things that people don't really understand, and making things work, and going home at the end of the day. But and then you also have the natural human natural human tendency to want to withhold information to make yourself more valuable, and more relied on, right, for job security. So those two, I think, are a little bit of a struggle, because you're fighting maybe culture, and you're fighting human instinct, right? If they feel, if some people feel, if they tell everybody everything they do and everybody understands it, they're replaceable. So those are probably two of the things that are a little bit more difficult at a senior level to get everybody on board with. I think we definitely turned the corner at ARA in that respect. Our team is a lot more open than it was prior. And I think we have a better working relationship with the organization as well because of that.
Mm-hmm. Right, yeah, well, thank you. So now I'm going to be turning you over to Novia and Kenan for a couple of questions.
All right.
Thanks, Imogen. So you touched on IT a bit in the introduction, but let's cycle back a little bit and kind of talk about what is IT, you know?
Yeah, your guess is
Especially
probably
like,
as good as mine.
yeah, because it's I feel like it's difficult to define it, especially since IT manifests in different ways depending, you know, what company you work at and what exactly you're doing with IT. But for
Yeah.
you and for what you do, what is IT?
So, I mean, that's a great point, Novia. That IT means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. A lot of people think of IT just as technology in general, right? But if you're a tech company, IT still means one thing. Your product just is technology, right? So you're a developer. That doesn't mean you're in IT. You're building something for customers. That's, one thing. But, in general, the role of IT in an organization is really the transfer and storage of data or information and all the devices and software that you use to do that, from the computers to servers to networking equipment and telephones. It really covers that end-to-end manage and maintenance of information, and that's files to bits and bytes to a row and a column on a database. It really that end-to-end of how people do their job in an organization is what IT is. And an IT department manages that for the organization. So even if you're a developer, right, that's technology at a tech company, there's a group that's helping you make sure your computer is running most efficiently to do your job.
Yeah, admittedly, I was one of those people that thought IT was like solely the guys that you call when your computer isn't working, like especially at work, you know, something's not right. I hit up the IT guy and I say, hey, can you help me out with this? And so I think it's good to touch on the other aspects of
Yeah.
IT, you know?
But that's definitely a part of it, and that's what's most visible to most people. That's what one of the misnomers is. But I think we'll get into that a little bit more too.
So, what would you say a typical day or week like is on the job for you?
That really varies based on your role. So let's take the role that you're most familiar with, a help desk person. They will field calls and emails from people like you or anyone in the organization to help them with their issues, whether it's something they're having on their computer and they can't remember how to control alt delete and reboot to resolve it. Just kidding. That's 9 times out of 10 that solves most things. Or they're having problems connecting to the internet, or they can't access a file that they're used to getting to, or some system they need to do to do their job. So they'll get a multitude of calls or emails for help. So they have to work with those people to resolve that. But then there's the rest of the infrastructure team, and they're really keeping the lights on. They're managing the systems. They're reviewing logs to make sure the network's up and running. If we have any peak traffic that's causing issues or anything that might come up during the day, they're really just supporting the help desk staff if issues go beyond their expertise, and or managing our network and systems. And then, in their spare time, they have various projects that they could work on, whether it's a system or network upgrade or some new security that we need to put in place. And then we have another role of business analysts and developers, and they're working really more hand in hand with the business for future items, not break fix type things, but what do they need to perform their job better? So it might be, developing a report, updating or configuring, some software, or, building something new altogether, to improve the productivity or efficiency of that role or that work product. And then, you have somebody like me that doesn't do much of anything anymore. I oversee and know a little bit about a lot of it, and I communicate with the business and make sure we're all marching in the same direction. But and then I dabble once in a while into the application side, because that's really where I grew up in system development. So I'll play around in that area as well and support my team as best I can. But my job really has become clearing the way of the bureaucracy and issues that to prevent the team from getting done what they need to get done.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think, ISDS students straight out of Cal State Fullerton are, going to end up doing once they graduate?
Well,
or I guess, at ARA in particular, what kinds of things do most information technologies people do right when they get out of college?
Well, I think it depends on where you go. If you go into consulting, it might be one thing. If you go into, a corporate job and an IT staff, it may be another. A very typical thing, and again, depending on your focus, and maybe any other experience you have, if you did internships or worked while you were in school, it opens a little bit more doors. But a very typical role is to start off as a help desk technician. That way you see most of the environment, and then from there you become a help desk 2 or a network or a systems engineer, and then you move into management at some point, hopefully. That's more the technical hardcore side, but then there's a more developer path. You could go to a tech company and code and help build a product. If you go into an IT department, you might develop reports or help manage the data warehouse or interfaces that the various systems that feed into that, as an initial round. And then you become a designer, and you can then work with the business a little bit more as you understand it, to define the systems or locate off-the-shelf products and help get those developed and involved. But again, it's always a mix of work experience. I'd say if you have little experience, then you're probably going to start low, or lower in the broader sense of IT, and that's with the help desk. Not that that's a low rank or job. It's actually I think it's one of the hardest jobs, just because you're dealing with people that are having issues and they're frustrated. So it can be one of the most difficult jobs actually in the organization, in that capacity and from a communication perspective. So you have to be able to calm the people down first, so that you can work through with them the issues, because it's usually either something they're doing or you need more information from them, and if you can't guide them through that to get what you need, then you're not going to be able to resolve that issue.
Right. So it seems like ISDS students, it depends on what path they're trying to take, and it's obviously not going to be the same for everyone. So it's good to see what kinds of different things they can do.
Yeah, and that's a good point, actually, that you won't know necessarily where you want to end up in your career, but it's nice to have an idea where you're trying to go, so you can figure out the first step to take. And that can change, right? I didn't know what I wanted to do at all. I went into consulting because I figured that would open more doors and it would close. And then I kind of just worked my way throughout my career. But I mean, that's not for everybody. But it was a good learning experience.
Mm-hmm. So how would you say the IT field has transformed since you first started in IT? Because things have changed a lot since then, I assume.
You're telling me. it's gotten broader and faster, really. The more and more things are falling under the purview of the IT department. Consider Internet of Things, for an example. When I started, I didn't care about a refrigerator on IT, but now a refrigerator can connect to the internet and is possibly susceptible to being hacked, right? So now we care in general about refrigerators and toasters and microwaves that might jump on the network for smart devices, and think about the phones people carry with them day in and day out, whether they're going to be on the network or not. So we're dealing with a lot more devices and penetration points than we've ever had to deal with in the past. And then it's getting a lot faster, right? I mean, not just the speed of the internet and of devices, but users' expectations and what they can have and when they can have it is growing at an exponential rate. The consumerization of technology, and that's just, everybody has technology everywhere with them, right? Those expectations come in to work, and they don't necessarily understand why they can't have XYZ at work when they can do ABC at home. So that's definitely changed over the years. I think expectations were low when I started. They expected things to take months and years and cost hundreds to millions of dollars to get, and now they don't understand why they can't just download an app for $1.99 and be done with it.
Yeah. Would you say that because everyone's, so immersed in technology that like the threat of being hacked is just so much worse now because there's like 15-year-olds that like know how to hack things, and it's like you have more threats coming from different directions as you did in the past, or is it almost kind of the same because IT has evolved with that, and so they were able to develop new security measures before things could get out of hand?
That's an interesting question. It's a little bit of both. I think as people understand technology, you definitely get more people out there that are want to try things for fun or maliciously, right? So not every hack is malicious and is going to cost you, millions and billions of dollars. Some people just want to do it for the sake that say they can do it. But at the same time, our technology and security protocols and things have evolved. Every story you hear on the news of a hack, somebody somewhere is trying to solve that problem. So that's definitely a huge concern, and that's another area that IT has transformed over the years as well. Our attention to security is much greater today than it was, and there wasn't as many things open in the past, right? You had one way in and one way out. Now, again, with Internet of Things and so many different devices and handhelds and laptops, roaming out there, and that people want access to your information wherever they are, there's a lot more holes that have to be managed and plugged, for sure.
Sure. I'm interested in my earphones cut out. I'm sorry. As a communications major, I'm interested in how communications intersects with IT. What communication skills would you say are important when doing IT?
I don't know how to frame it in terms of a communication education topics or or verbiage, but I think I've touched quite a bit on it in the past. While technology has become easier and easier to use, that doesn't necessarily mean everybody understands it, how it works, or why you would select one system over another. So it's really important to be able to communicate effectively to get your ideas and points across to the business. They hold the purse strings and decide whether a project's going to go forward or not. So it's critical to get their support and buy-in for the project to be successful, and thus for you to be successful, right? If you keep bringing a bunch of projects forward and they fail for one reason or another, that doesn't look too good on you. So, and a lot of the failure or preparation for success, I would call it, is in the communication. Over communicating, making sure everybody's on board, making sure they understand why you're doing something. It's critical, and for a project to be successful, you really need their buy-in, and you need users to understand why they're doing one thing over another and the benefit to them, so that they get on it, they get excited about it, and it kind of can evangelize the use of that product. And then, I think we covered this as well, especially at the help desk level. The junior, generally the users call in, they're extremely frustrated and confused. So it's really important to be able to explain to them what the issue is in terms that they understand, and that will help alleviate their frustration and concern. Sometimes users don't care what the problem is. They may just want it to go away, and that's okay too. But you need to be able to understand that and pick up on a lot of those nonverbal cues, tone, inflection, to understand the direction you want to take that call in.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I feel like, especially, I feel like the most frustrated people are the ones that like don't have a single clue, or have like, who think they know what they're doing, but they're just so frustrated that like this one instance they can't figure it out. And so I feel like communication is really important in sort of like trying to make it make sense for someone who's not an expert. And so I think that's
which one of those users are you, Novia? You said you call the help desk.
I'm the kind of person to try to figure
you don't have to
it out
answer.
on my
You
own
don't have to.
and Google.
Yeah.
And then
yeah, Google is a blessing and a curse to IT, right?
Yeah.
And just like you always hear in the medical field, right? It's a blessing and a curse. People self-diagnose their own symptoms and try to tell the doctor what's wrong with them versus just telling them what their symptoms are and letting the doctor work through it. It's very similar with IT. People look stuff up and try to figure it out, and sometimes it causes a little bit more damage because what they read is not what you have in your organization. It's what somebody else has, and they can break things and make it a little bit worse. But it's a great tool to have. It helps us with our job as well, because when we can't find a resolution, we'll go to Google as well to figure stuff out. So
yeah,
but let the doctors do their job.
I agree.
And the technicians.
So Cannon has a few questions for you, so he's going to take it from here.
Sure.
So I guess like in the past, like I guess year, a little bit over a year during the pandemic, how has the pandemic kind of fueled the IT system and like everything like with that? Has it really launched it forward, like because everything kind of went virtual, or how has the IT world kind of changed during the pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, because we talk about it all the time, and all of the industry boards and conferences I go to, it's constantly being discussed of this new normal and how we evolve. Now, in my day-to-day at our work, we had actually prepared for not specifically this situation, but we prepare for if our office goes down, how are people going to work? So everybody already had laptops. We already had video conferencing installed on all of our machines, and people were used to it with video phone. So we were pretty fortunate to have a robust disaster recovery business continuity plan in place that this kind of fell into. Now, it wasn't perfect, right? We ended up buying a lot of monitors for people so they could have them at home and be as productive as they are in the office. But a lot of companies were caught flat-footed. They didn't have laptops; they had desktops. So people were working from their home computers, which didn't have all the software or the security protocols they needed on it. So there's a mad scramble on a lot of organizations to do a few things around security and around digital transformation. So a lot of paper documents that you might route around the office for hand signatures, you had to figure out how to do that I mean, there were always ways to do that, electronically, DocuSign and other systems like that. But people had to understand that and change the process. So it advanced a lot of digitization of the workplace in a lot of organizations. And that's, a common thing that I've heard from a lot of different companies on these various calls I'm taking a part of, that a lot of them had those projects in place and on their roadmap, but it just, lit a fire under them and got them going even faster. And the business was a willing participant. So one of the problems we've had at our company is sometimes the business doesn't want to participate in these projects because it takes their time and energy away from their day-to-day jobs. So, but at these other organizations, when the business is asking for it, they'll give it the attention to get it done. And that's what work from home had done for a lot of organizations to help advance their IT environment.
Yeah. So as things like kind of start opening back up, that's probably going to change a little bit, right? Or like, do you think they're like how would that be changing?
Yeah, it's hard to say because I came to Florida from LA during the pandemic because we have family here. I like working from home now. I've gotten used to it. I have my family here and I can, cut out 2+ hours of commute time and spend with them instead. So I think there's new demands in the workplace by users, by employees because of this. And I think the demand will be more of a hybrid environment. I know our organization looked at it as an advantage. They were the senior staff or senior executives were pleasantly surprised with how well we were able to operate in a work from home environment. And it just opens up the doors to talent from anywhere, really, right? You can look for the best, not just the best in your local market, for any role, not just technology, but any business role, asset manager, or whatever, we do or they do at other organizations. So I think, I think we'll end in a hybrid environment. There's definitely efficiencies to having people in the same place and talking face to face, right? There's a lot of the nonverbal cues. You can't see me bouncing my leg under the table right now, showing that I'm nervous or whatever, that I could be lying to you. There's a lot you miss when you're not in person, but video calls have helped kind of smooth that over quite a bit. So I think we'll definitely end in a hybrid of some sort, maybe a 3-2 work week, 3 days at work, 2 at home, or vice versa.
Yeah. So was the beginning of the pandemic really busy for you guys because everyone was kind of adjusting to that virtual?
Yeah, it was a lot of calls. Even though people had laptops, they hadn't necessarily taken them home. Some people took them home on the weekend. They hadn't necessarily logged into our network through VPN, so virtual private network. So they hadn't done a lot of those things. They hadn't tried to use their phone on their laptop, even though they had it, right? Because they were always plugged in at work and they had a handset that they would use. So there were definitely some learning curve that first month. Getting users up to speed on the tools we had in place was busy.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess last question to close would be, what would your advice to IT students who are looking, because I'm sure every IT student wants to get to your position, or be in business, and you're kind of.
I don't think everyone does.
What advice would you give to them to get to where you are?
To get to where I am, I hadn't really thought about it like that because there's so many roles in IT, and I think people play to their strengths, and there are a lot of technical people that just like being and staying in the technical and minimizing their exposure to users, and that's kind of more of the network system admin roles. You're kind of sheltered or shielded from day-to-day users, but in general, I think, and definitely to get to my role, you have to know the business you're working in. You can't just focus on the technology. You can't only do the nerdy things, the geeky things. You have to get involved with the business and know why they're doing what they're doing so you can better support them. So improving your business acumen, I think, you know, especially if you want the business to have faith in you and your capabilities, and if you want to advance in your career, knowing the business is critical. That would be my one piece of advice, I think, is don't ignore the business for technology. You're there. Technology is there to support the business, and that's critical. That you know the best way to support them, and to do that is to know what they're doing and what their frustrations are.
Yeah. Thanks.
Great.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you. I hope that the people watching this learned a lot. I know I did as a comm major that really did not have much knowledge about IT. I definitely learned a lot this time. And I hope that, you know, even though our audience is mostly ISDS students, I hope they learned some new things today and got some good takeaways. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. I hope they did as well. This was fun. Appreciate it.
Great.
You bet.
Yeah, thank you.
Good luck, everyone.